Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys Marvel Avengers 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review video. Now today, finally, is the day that we complete the Marvel's Big 3 with none other than Thor based off his appearance in Avengers Endgame. Honestly, I've been really darn excited for this guy to finally come in. Is this the ultimate version of Thor? Well, we'll have to find out throughout the course of this video. Now, if you are looking to pick this guy up, he is available from toyswonderland.com. I have popped the link in the description below, and they do have 12-month installment plans if you are a fan of paying off your figures over time. What we are going to do now, though, is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. Here, of course, we have the box art for Thor. We do have an image of Thor right up here on the front of the box, done in this oil painting style aesthetic. I personally am not a huge fan of this style. For some of the characters, it has worked out quite well, but for Thor here, this overly soft look to the image, yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of it. As for the rest of the box, Thor on the side, a nice gold foil Mjolnir up the top here, and it does have this grey scale and red colour scheme, which I personally really do like. Now this is one of those slip open covers, and you can see Thor on the inside, but we're not here to really look at the box. Let's get him out here. And here we have the inner clam tray. Right on the top you can see a ton of lightning effects, just like we saw with the Infinity War version of Thor. Now, a lot of people have asked me to try swapping various different bits and pieces between both releases, so I'll do my best to showcase that throughout the course of the video. Now, here we have Bro Thor himself. I'm pretty sure that's still the official name for this incarnation of Thor, and you can see he's accurately portrayed based off his appearance in the film. First, in-hand impressions are pretty darn positive. This is a relatively chunky and hefty boy. Now, as you can see, he does come with a fair few bits and pieces, so what we are going to do now is get all of Thor's accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. And here we have all the accessories that come with Thor. Let's start off by taking a look at the display base first. It's the usual Avengers Endgame hexagonal style base, this time with this Thor logo printed on the top. I really do like the colour scheme here though. It bleeds from red into purple, around to green, then back to blue. It's a very nice rainbow effect. We also have Thor printed on the front there. Now, to go along with the display base, we of course have the dynamic flight pole. They've given us one of the chunkier ones because he himself is a little bit chunkier. This is more like what you'd find with a die-cast Iron Man figure, but because this figure does weigh a little bit more, they've gone for the heftier option. As for the waist clamp though, unfortunately they haven't. Well, what do you mean, Justin? Won't this do the job? I mean, yeah, it might, but because his waist is a lot larger and this piece maxes out at this distance right here, I think you're gonna struggle to have this around his waist in midair and not damage the suit. So I personally would recommend either swapping this out for the one that comes with the diecast Mark 7 with the extra crotch grabber down below, or clamping this around one of Thor's thighs. That's more thigh size than Thor waist size, because if you do have it maxed out, you're going to be putting a lot of pressure on the suit, so please be careful when you do pose your Thor. Now, in terms of the weapons, he does come with a brand new and improved version of Stormbreaker. This is the new one, and if we bring in the old one, you can see there is a massive size difference. This is you, and then this is the guy she tells you not to worry about. It is absolutely massive. Even the actual handle itself is a lot bigger. They've also ditched all of the sort of vine work that was on the Infinity War version. For those of you who don't know, this was based off early concept art, and then unfortunately when the figure was coming out, it was far too late to change the design to this one right here, which is far more accurate. They've also upgraded the paint process to this gorgeous chrome finish There are a couple of gold spots in the crevices, and all of the writing does have a wash over the top. Plus, for good measure, if you hit the button, yeah, it lights up and it looks awesome while it does it. You do also get some energy effect pieces for Stormbreaker itself. You will see these installed on both weapons a little bit later in the video, but just know that, yeah, he comes with a ton of effect pieces. Now let's talk about Mjolnir for a moment. We will compare this to the one that most recently came with Endgame Cap later in the video, but yes, it too does light up. You literally swivel the handle, which is a very nice touch, and it looks really cool. The blue light is very, very strong and vibrant, and it has this sort of cloudy, ethereal effect. I really like the way they've done it, and it has that gorgeous chrome finish with some pitting and weathering over the top. Is this the best Mjolnir to date? Yeah, I personally think it is. He also has the pleathery style strap down below, and the handle is equally nicely painted. He comes with an array of hands as you'd expect, but they've done something interesting. Not with the hands themselves, but actually with the wrist pegs. So if you bring in the wrist pegs that he comes with two different options. These ones that have the usual swivel that you can move forward and back, and then these, without any swivel at all. It's interesting that they've gone for this, but basically they've given you these because they feel that Stormbreaker is too heavy, with all of the energy effects attached, to be held up by a usual wrist peg, so they've given you these that don't move at all. I don't think I'm going to be using these in my display because I prefer to have his wrist angled down when he's holding a weapon, but I like the fact that they have thought of that. It shows that, yeah, they really do care. Now, in terms of the other effect pieces, he does come with a metric ton of them, so we won't take a look at them all, but throughout the course of the video, I will be exchanging them with the various parts and pieces on the body. He comes with the lightning effect discs, these pieces that go around his wrists, and of course the big honkin' lightning effect pieces for Stormbreaker. What we are going to do now, though, is get Thor himself out here and take a closer look. And here we have him standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. And yeah, it does what it says on the tin. It's an endgame version of Armored Bro Thor. I personally really like this look. I know a lot of people are screaming at the screen saying, "Justin, that's not Thor. Thor is this big buff dude. Why are you looking at this guy?" I'm totally right there with you. That's the iconic classic look for Thor, and the good thing is you can take parts and pieces from this guy and combine them with Infinity War Thor to, in my opinion, make the ultimate Thor figure. Is this right here the ultimate Thor figure? Well, that's going to come down to your personal preference on the look. I'm leaning towards no for me personally, but then again, he comes with some awesome accessories, so I'll have to let you know my final decision on that later in the video. What we are going to do now, though, is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. And here we have him up close and personal. I have to say, I'm more impressed than I thought I was going to be with this release. Initially, I mean, when you look at him on paper, he's basically an Infinity War Thor with a ton of padding both in the legs and in the gut, and a new armor piece over the top. That's pretty much it. I mean, they have added the brand new head sculpt, which looks incredible, but there wasn't a hell of a lot for me personally to get excited about. I know pretty much everyone was super hype for this version of Thor, and now seeing it in hand, I'm right there with you. It's fantastic. I mean, that head sculpt alone is on point. I can see Chris Hemsworth in the likeness there. The sculpt of the beard is spectacular. I love the sculpted hair. I know some people are already contemplating switching out the sculpted hairpiece for a rooted hairstyle wig, but for me personally, this is what I've been hoping for a long time out of an Endgame style Thor. I mean, the sculpted hair works perfectly, and you'll see later in the video, it doesn't really hinder articulation whatsoever. So yeah, I'm really happy with the sculpt. And of course, the paint applications are second to none. As for the torso armor, this is the largest new piece. Now, if you'll remember from Infinity War Thor, he had various swap-out parts and panels. This guy doesn't have as many, but these sort of lightning disc pieces of sorts do still come off, and you can replace them with the electric versions that you saw earlier. They've refined the mechanism here though. Now they're just friction fit pegs versus last time when you actually had to clip them in, and it was a right pain to do that. Now it's a hell of a lot easier. Don't worry, you will see what it looks like with all of the lightning effects on in just a second. As for the paint applications on this though, you might initially think it could be a little bit boring. It's literally just a black suit of armor. Well, that's where you'd be wrong. There are very subtle differences in the finish, and that comes down to the texture as well. Then they've added some weathering here and there, so this thing actually does look really darn fantastic. You can also see down here on the dingier gold sections a little bit of weathering as well. Moving on to the arms, I'm pleased to report that these use the exact same ball joint mechanism as Infinity War Thor, so yes, you can detach them and install the regular seamless arms, the human bear arms, on this guy as well. And you will see that throughout the course of this video. These arms, though, are a lot chunkier than the Infinity War version. The scale mail for the armor is also quite a lot darker, but they do still move in the exact same way, so when you bend them, you do unfortunately get a bit of an ugly crease at the elbow there. Coming down to the pants, these are pretty much identical to the previous version, just a lot bigger. There is a ton of padding in the legs all the way up under the belly. This is all squishy padding, so it's not the body, the underlying buck, that's any bigger, it's just a ton of padding that's been added. So you will have slight restrictions when it comes to the leg movement. As you can see, it doesn't really want to go much more forward than that. But it does create an accurate look to the film with his big chunky thighs coming down to his regular Infinity War style boots. I'm pretty sure these are reused pieces from the previous version, and I have no problem with that. They worked fine then, and they work fine now. A split cut boot design as well, so you get maximum range of motion from the ankles, plus a good amount of detail for the tread of the boots there. He also has his classic Thor cape. It is a double-ply material, and there is a little bit of printing on the edges, but no weathering. I love it when they include some weathering down the bottom just to give it that dirty, soiled look, because of course the cape will be dragged around during battle, but they've left it rather clean. No wires as well, but it does drape very nicely, and there is a pattern on the inside. As for the back, this is where the battery compartment is housed, so let's get to swapping out the bits and pieces so we can see what he looks like with the lights in the studio turned off. I'm really curious to see those light up effects. So without further ado, let's swap out these various pieces. And here we have him with all of the LED effects turned on and most of the lightning effect pieces attached as well. Now if you'll remember back to the accessory segment, there are a couple that attach to the weapons. You will see that at the conclusion of the video in the wrap-up segment. We'll also be turning off the studio lights, dimming them so you can see what the effect looks like in low light. But as you can see, the various pieces do attach to the body. They are translucent, so they carry the light fairly nicely. But in my opinion, one of the coolest things is the light up effect on Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. So without further ado, let's dim the lights. Here of course you have that effect, and I have to say it looks absolutely incredible. I'm not sure if you can tell, but in person it's a lot more vibrant. The blue is very strong, and it also has this sort of smoky, swirly effect to the plastic to make it look like it has a little bit of life, a little bit of movement in it. As for the chest pieces, they're a little bit more basic. They're literally just a white LED. I think they could have put a blue filter over there just to give it that proper lightning effect, but if you are doing some figure photography and you do touch them up in post anyway, it's not a huge deal. But as for the weapons, yeah, I personally am very happy. Now, because someone did ask, yes, you can take the much larger Endgame Thor arms and use them on Infinity War Thor, because the attachment method is identical. All you have to do is, of course, remove the arms at the ball joint socket, which is no easy feat, especially on camera, and peg in the new Endgame ones. And as you can see, they are absolutely massive. I personally do like the look here with the bigger, chunkier arms, but then again, the ones he comes with are no slouch either. It's just going to be down to personal preference, which option you prefer. Those very same people also asked me to put the Endgame head on the Infinity War body because they much prefer the slimmer proportion look. And of course, that should be possible because the underlying body is pretty much exactly the same. And there you have it. Here is what Infinity War Thor looks like with the Endgame head sculpt. And yeah, I actually really like the way it looks. Now you will notice the hair will stick up a lot over the shoulders. That's because he's nowhere near as thick as he is in Endgame. You could potentially heat the hair up and shape it down around the face to combat that issue. But for me, yeah, I'm actually tempted to try and pick up another Endgame Thor head sculpt and display this option on the shelf, because in my opinion, it looks pretty darn awesome. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have Infinity War Thor and Endgame Thor standing side by side. And as you can see, the design is very, very similar, and that's to be expected. This is supposed to be the same exact outfit. It's just Thor has maybe gotten a little bit larger, and that's exactly what Hot Toys have done here. The patterning for the pants is identical, the boots are exactly the same, the design for the armor is the same as well, it's just this time there's a lot more padding and a little bit more of a gut. They've also made the arms a lot bigger, and then of course the biggest difference is in the head sculpts. The new one is absolutely superior. In my opinion, it's the best likeness to Chris Hemsworth that they've done to date. I am curious though, do let me know which is your favourite down in the comments below. Next up, here we have him alongside Endgame Captain America, and this is starting to make the picture a little bit clearer as to how he'll fit in to the display. I really like this. He is roughly around the same height as Cap here, which makes sense, and they look fantastic together. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people pose Cap, Thor, and Iron Man all in a row, just like in the scene where Thor summons both of his weapons and his armor. That would be one hell of a posing option. I personally will be trying to do that in my display when I do set up my brand new Endgame section, so definitely stay tuned to the channel for a future collection tour. And lastly, of course, here we have the Mark 85 next to Thor. As you can see, they are the exact same height, give or take a few millimeters. Now, that isn't accurate to real life, where of course Robert Downey Jr. would be a lot shorter than Chris Hemsworth, but in the film, I'm actually looking at a screenshot right now off camera, and somehow they made Tony Stark the same height as Cap and Thor in the film, so this height comparison is film accurate to say the least. Either way, they look fantastic standing together. I am hoping that the battle damage version of the Mark 85 and Thanos means that eventually we'll get a battle damage version of Cap and Thor as well, because this guy is a pretty darn good base for Hot Toys to go ahead and make a battle damage version. Just going over articulation on Thor. Now bear in mind, this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I'm willing to go. Now, starting off with the head sculpt itself, it is on a fixed neck and it does have a significant amount of sculpted hair around it. However, I am pleased to report that doesn't really hinder the articulation side to side or even backwards and forwards. I mean, it is slightly restricted obviously, but not overly so. I think this guy will do more than enough in terms of movement here. As for the arms, they are pegged in at the shoulder, so they do go up about that far. They will go all the way around, and there is a butterfly joint in there as well. There is no swivel at the bicep because it's one seamless piece, but we do have a single bend on soft ratchets at the elbow, plus a regular 1/6 scale wrist peg. As for the torso, I mean, you can see it, right? It's one big, thick, sculpted piece, so you won't have any crunch or swivel or pivot whatsoever. All of your movement is going to come from the waist, side to side, and swivel left and right. The legs themselves are restricted due to the fat suit underneath, so they go forward to about there, they go out to about there, swivel at the upper thigh, a double bend on ratchets at the knee, but it only gets you to about 90 degrees, and of course a ball joint for the ankle. Just going over the 3 cool and 3 annoying things with Thor. The first annoying thing is kind of unavoidable, but it's still worth mentioning. When it comes to articulation, due to the fully sculpted upper torso with the larger style belly, you literally have no movement. So from the waist up, it's basically a fixed piece. I know that will annoy some. Does it bother me? No, not really. The second annoying thing comes down to how they packaged the figure. If you rewind back to the unboxing segment, you'll see that he didn't have any of that usual plastic on his arms or on his feet. So unfortunately, sometime down the line, mine happened to get some black paint on his hand. Not the biggest deal in the world, mind you. I can just very simply remove that with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, but it's something that is quite frustrating. Hot Toys are known for wrapping the plastic around the forearms and also on the legs to prevent stuff like this from happening, so I'm not exactly sure why, as of late, they've stopped doing it. The third annoying thing has to do with Stormbreaker. When I went to install the batteries on it, I found that it was almost impossible to remove this back panel. I literally had to wedge something into this crevice, and that was no easy feat. Plus, when you take it off, you can see that it's literally only being held on by the very thinnest of translucent plastic pegs. Not exactly sure why Hot Toys didn't use magnets here. I absolutely think that would have been the way to go, because this attachment method feels very flimsy and very delicate. The first cool thing about Endgame Thor is the paint application process used both on Mjolnir and on Stormbreaker. The one that I have here on the right is the one that came with Endgame Captain America. It's no slouch, it looks metallic, it does have this pitting effect throughout, but then, when you compare it to the new one on the left here, it's so much brighter, it's so much shinier, and way more metallic. I think this right here might be a preview of what's to come with the paint applications on the new Beskar Mando. The second cool thing is the fact that they've used that UV reflective paint on the eyes once again. So if you did want to have Thor fully illuminated going all out rage mode with the lightning effect eyes, and you already have a UV effect display base, like potentially the one that came with Black Panther set up in your display, then yeah, it makes for a really awesome effect. The third cool thing is that they've used the same exact ball joint attachment method for the arms on Endgame Thor here. So technically, if you wanted to, and you had Infinity War Thor, you could simply pop out the arms and use the seamless skin tone ones. I mean, it's a look that we didn't see in the film, but it's a pretty darn good option if you just have these arms lying around and you'd like something different for your display. Just wrapping up on the Endgame version of Thor. Now at the end of this video, can I honestly sit here and unequivocally tell you this is the very best version of Thor to date by Hot Toys? Unfortunately, no. I still think that crown goes to the Infinity War version. That one, to me, is the very best of Thor from the company. That being said, this is still a really good, if not great, release. There are a couple of things holding him back. Number one, the lack of articulation in the legs. I actually included more poses than usual in this segment because I had such a tough time posing him. In fact, I was getting a little bit frustrated because you could barely move the legs, and then the Stormbreaker with all of the effect pieces on was far too heavy and it kept falling out of his hands. I reckon posing with Peter and Adam Pagels could show me up tenfold and do some amazing poses with this guy, but I'm just an entry-level poser, so I had a real tough time. He does, however, come with a ton of awesome effect pieces, and I love the head sculpt, so he does have some redeeming qualities as well. Plus, if you are building out the endgame line, this guy is kind of a must. I think the perfect version of Thor sits somewhere in between the Infinity War one and this guy right here. If you were to swap out the arms, perhaps, and swap out the head sculpt but keep the Infinity War body with slightly improved articulation, especially in the legs, I reckon you'll be a lot happier. Plus, if you nick the Stormbreaker out of this guy with the awesome light-up effects, you'll be very, very happy indeed. I'm still holding out hope that when Thor Love and Thunder comes out, we get the ultimate badass version of Thor that I think a lot of people were hoping this one would be. Nevertheless, I still can recommend him. He is a really good release, and as I said, if you want to complete the endgame line, this guy is a must. If you do want to pick him up, he is available from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is of course down in the description below, and they do have 12-month installment plans if you are a fan of paying off your figures over time. Also, while you are down there, why not check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.